T-90M and T-80BVM manuals have been leaked. Yes, both of them. And there is actually quite a lot of interesting stuff in them. Some information that sheds a light on some stuff we were not sure about, and some confirming what we already knew. Surprisingly, it wasn't War Thunder's fault for these getting leaked this time. Shocking, I know. They were actually leaked on some Russian forum, but I won't go into detail in order not to get anyone in trouble, nor will I be posting them in full anywhere. You can probably find them if you Google them or something. They have been shared all over the place. I will mostly be using screenshots of the translated variants. Anyway, I looked through these manuals and I will try to sum them up the best I can, and show you the most interesting stuff. A lot of it is how to use each thing on a tank, since, well, they are manuals intended for the crew. Let's start with the T-90M first. First piece of information that we can see is that the tank actually weighs 51 tons. This is higher than previously thought, since each piece of information for T-90MS stated that the tank weighed 48 tons, and since T-90M is pretty much the same, everyone thought that the tank also weighs 48 tons. The catch here is that the 48 tons is probably the empty weight, because the manual states that the 51 tons is the weight with the crew and the tank fully loaded with ammunition and fuel, which really can add that much weight. So yeah, a fully combat loaded tank weighs a bit more than previously thought. Next, we have the confirmation that the tank has indeed received no increase in the reverse speed, because the gears listed are 7 forward and 1 reverse, meaning that the tank is as slow as any other T-72 or T-90 tank in reverse, which is something we kinda already knew based on all the footage, but it is nice to get the confirmation. Nice thing is that we actually got confirmation that the tank uses an automatic gear shifter, which switches the gears automatically without the driver having to manually change gears, making the driving experience much easier. A lot of people thought that because of how it looks, the gear shifter was manual only, especially since we have seen a much more high-tech looking shifter in tanks like T-72B1MS, which are confirmed to be automatic. The one in T-90M looks much simpler, but it is in fact automatic. The old T-90MS presentation has actually shown this kind of shifter and stated it was automatic. And now these manuals confirm that it is, even explaining how to switch from automatic to manual and how to drive the tank in each mode. Details about the firepower don't show us anything new, but it is stated that the tank can fire airburst ammunition, which is something we already knew since we have even seen a demonstration of that. Now, there is an interesting thing regarding the bagged ERA. You know, the extra protection Russians used to add to their tanks and then stopped because they realized a couple of straps aren't the best way to hold armor onto the tank. Well, it turns out that the bag ERA that was mounted to the turret used 4S24 ERA elements. This ERA offers great protection against heat and was specifically designed for light vehicles like BMP-3, and we have even seen one deployed to Ukraine with it and apparently then got destroyed. But it is weird because all extra ERA add-ons used 4S22 elements, the one used in Contact 5, including the bagged ERA mounted to the hull of the T-90M, as well as for any other tank, and the ERA on the turret sides of the T-80BVM and T-72B3M, all of those use 4S22. It was thought that 4S24 was not actually in production, because before we saw it on the BMP-3, it was only seen on demonstrations and never in use, but it turns out they actually produced and used it. We also get a bit of information about an Akitka system. It is stated that the system is meant to decrease the probability of detection and targeting by high-precision weapons. This is probably referring to something like Javelin, because Akitka reduces the thermal signature of the tank, and Javelin uses thermal signature of the target to guide the missile. So now we know that Nakitka wasn't only designed to reduce the chances of the tank getting spotted, but they actually wanted to decrease the chances of something like Javelin being able to target the tank. Keep in mind that this does not mean that the tank is suddenly immune to javelins. As manual states, it is only to decrease the chances of it getting targeted and hit by it. We also got a lot of good information about the fire control system, most of it being how to use it, but some of it is quite interesting. The manual states that the tank uses TPK-K thermal imager in the main gun sight. The manual does not mention the term Sosna U anywhere, so my speculation that they have fully transitioned to using the domestic PNMT sight in the T-90M might be true. Anyway, the TPK-K thermal is a Russian third-generation thermal, which we have some info on. It uses the Russian domestically made third-gen matrices, and unlike what some people thought, T-90M does not actually use French thermals, well, at least not anymore. The name of the thermal for the CITV is not mentioned, but they state it operates in the range of 3 to 5 microns, which is what is stated for the TPK-K in both the manual and the data for the thermal. so it is very likely the same imager, since scattering thermals operate in the range of 8 to 12 microns. We also have info on the automatic target tracking provided by the main gun sight and the CITV. For those who don't know, all Russian tanks with modern optics have the automatic target tracking ability, which basically boils down to the sight locking on the thermal signature of a target and then having the gun follow the target, compensating for its movement and everything. All the gunner has to do is pull the trigger. The system also has the ability that if the target during movement gets suddenly obstructed by something, it will keep following based on the latest data on the target's movement and constantly trying to relock onto it. So if a vehicle gets suddenly obstructed by foliage or a house while being targeted, the system won't suddenly just drop the target, but will be trying to follow it and reacquire it again, which is a really nice feature. Another cool feature about the automatic target tracking is that the commander can use his CITV, engage the automatic target tracking mode, and while having his CITV follow the target, he can call in the main gun to the target and the automatic target tracking data will be transferred to the gunner, so the main gun sight will also be locked onto the same target, which increases the hunter-killer capabilities of the tank. The rest of the manual is mostly stuff we already knew and the stuff intended for the crew on how to use certain things, and unfortunately this manual did not have a lot of pictures, for whatever reason. A lot of text implies you're supposed to be looking at some pictures, but I guess whoever leaked it couldn't leak all the images with it. On the other hand, the T-80BVM manual comes with a lot of cool pictures, so let's now talk about the T-80BVM. The weight of the vehicle is stated to be 47.4 tons fully loaded, which is actually pretty reasonable. I kinda expected it to be a bit heavier. This was very much to be expected. The tank is also faster than the T-90M. Maximum speed of the T-90M is said to be 60 km per hour, while for T-80BVM it is 70. Maximum speed doesn't really mean much in combat, cross-country speed does. And the average speed for the T-80BVM is stated to be 40 to 45 km per hour on dirt, while for T-90M the figure is 35 to 45 km per hour. And keep in mind, this is average, not maximum, so the T-80BVM is on average slightly faster than the T-90M cross-country. We also get the information on the reverse speed, and it is 10.8 km per hour, pretty much the same as any other T-80 tank so far, which is much better than the measly 4 of the T-72 and the T-90 tanks, including the T-90M. The tank has 4 forward gears and 1 reverse. It has less gears because it uses a turbine, and while not having an automatic shifter like T-90M, the driving experience is not terrible because most of the time the driver only has to switch between 2 or 3 gears at best. Strange thing is that both 1250 horsepower and 1100 horsepower gas turbine engines are mentioned in the manual of the tank. Previously, it was believed that Russia was only installing 1250 horsepower turbines in the T-80BVMs, but it seems like they had some of them retain the old 1100 horsepower engine of the regular T-80BV. Otherwise, there would be no need to mention it in the manual. And as I mentioned earlier, the bagged ERA and the ERA on the turret sides use the 4S22 explosive elements. Unlike the T-90M, T-80BVM has no CITV, but an old, unstabilized TKN-3 or TKN-3MK sight with night vision system. Some have speculated that Russia might have started putting the upgraded TKN-3 with thermal into the tanks, something I have covered a while ago, but it turns out that it is definitely not the case. That sight will probably remain in its current state, just a demonstration piece. We got a lot of nice pics showing the relict and the additional sight protection modules, which is pretty nice. The manual mentions the new APF SDS shells, and even shows a diagram of one of them, confirming that T-80BVM, just like T-90M, can fire new APF SDS shells. Now, when it comes to the fire control system, the Sosna U sight is stated to be in the T-80BVM, which is not surprising. Now, it lists 2 different thermals, Cateran FC operating in the range of 8 to 12 microns, and the Russian KTV operating in the range of 3 to 5 microns like the TPKK of T-90M, but sadly I could not find any data of this thermal. We also get some nice pictures of the sights and the controls, as well as the pictures of the backup optic sight 1P67-1. There are a lot of pictures showing the parts of the engine, transmission, suspension, and a bunch of other stuff. Most of the stuff in these manuals is, as I said, instructions for the crew on how to use, handle, and operate various parts of the tanks. There isn't really much we can gather from them, other than the data I have talked about in this video. I mean, I probably missed something, but that is bound to happen when there are 5 different pieces of these manuals, each having hundreds of pages. A lot of people expect some armor data or penetration data to be present in the manuals, but that is not the case, and never will be the case. People making these manuals sort of expect the crews to steal them and share them with civilians, so the sensitive data like that is never included in them. Same happened when the Ukrainian Abrams manual got leaked. Everyone was panicking, only to realize it's just boring instructions how to turn on the radio and change frequencies and stuff like that. That is what these manuals are for the most part, just instructions. But anyway, that will be all for now. If you like my content, you can support me on Patreon. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. Have a nice day.